Hey yogis, welcome back to How Yoga Changed My Life, a podcast. This is Mia.
Can't even say my name today. And this is Adrienne.
And this week, you're going to hear an episode where we travel to Houston and talk to Taylor. But before we even jump into that, Adrienne, what's been going on? What's new?
Well, let's see what is going on and what's new. Kids are back in school. It's fucking freezing here. I'm not going to complain too much because I know Chicago and all the other Northeast is getting whacked with terrible storms. I've been spending a lot of time studying and doing a lot of self-reflection, a lot of looking at books because I'm planning the modules for the 300 hour that starts in March. So I'm super excited about that. It's really helped me kind of open up the view of what I thought teacher trainings should be and what teacher trainings, in my opinion, actually are. So learning a 200 hour, you learn kind of like, this is the way to do it. And I was like, but there's other ways. And I wanted people to be able to see all the other lineages and all the other different things that you can do with yoga. So it's brought a lot of clarity to my vision for it. And I'm excited to help other people grow.
Yeah. And you have an open house coming up.
Yep. January 27th. It's Saturday from 3 to 5 over at Blue Heart Studio. I'm super excited to see people come out, ask questions. Diving into a 300 hour is a little bit daunting for some people. For me, it really wasn't. I was like, I want more. I had that passion, that drive to want more. But some people are like, ugh, because you're getting into the gooky stuff. You're getting into a lot of self-reflection and a lot of self-work in a 300 hour.
Yeah. So if you're a San Antonio yogi who is maybe itching for some continual education, or you're just kind of curious to meet Adrienne, Nicole, and Jenny who are leading this training, come on out. I'll be there. Even if you're like, I'm not sure, or I'm good, just come and hang out because it's going to be fun.
It's going to be awesome. Yeah. So I've been working on that. What about you?
Been busy. I feel like this past week has been 3 weeks because I've been getting up early. This was the first week of cross-country practice. I am coaching a cross-country team and I am head over heels in love with them. I'm so excited. I wanted to coach all 3 years at my last campus and was never given the opportunity, no matter how many times I asked or begged or pleaded. Those coaching positions were on lock. And so I am so excited to be coaching cross-country. I ran cross country in high school as an athlete, and I think it's so cool that here in my school district, we have it at the middle school level, and I have 40 extremely dedicated athletes who show up at 6:30 a.m. for morning practice, go the whole school day, and then stick around a lot of times for soccer or basketball practice as well.
It's fucking insane. It's at 6th, 7th grade. There's no way you would get me up that early to go running. Yeah. I mean, I don't. I used to like to run, but now I'm not allowed to run unless I'm being chased. We also had a really cool workshop yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
We got together for our nonprofit, San Antonio Sangha, which is just a collaborative group of yogis from all over the San Antonio area. And we got together yesterday and did a social media workshop, which at first I was like, oh, fuck, I really don't want to go because social media is so daunting and overwhelming. And I don't always feel like I get it right. Or it takes so long. And it was a really great workshop. We got to collaborate. We got to do some posts. We had some fun with it. I really got a lot out of it.
Good.
It was nice.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad we got together. It was very collaborative. I think we got to break down and get into a lot of terminology and just how to use all these different apps. If you're a yoga teacher, San Antonio Sangha is a really, really great collective of teachers where we get to learn from one another and bounce ideas off one another and just have support in addition to our yoga studios or our teaching communities. And what's really cool is there are teachers from all over the city, from all these different studios and all these different corners of yoga. And so it's really cool to just come together in a neutral space where we're not fighting for class times and we're not fighting to have students in our class over each other. We're not trying to have a better playlist than anyone. We're just there to learn. And I've loved the Sangha. It's a big filling of my cup.
It really is. And I totally feel when it comes to yoga, we do have a tendency to get pigeonholed into our little boxes. And it's like, oh, you teach at this studio, you must be this kind of teacher. You teach at this studio, you must be this kind of teacher. But being able to understand that teachers of yoga are there for everyone, and you can learn from another teacher, whether they're younger than you, whether they've only been teaching for 2 months or 20 years, everyone can learn from everyone. And I think that's what makes the Sangha group so important to me. So yeah, we've been burning it down, getting stuff done. We've been cranking out interviews. This interview is special because we are introducing for season 2 another additional content. So after Taylor's episode this week, you'll get a follow-up episode from me. And then on Thursday, January 25th, we will drop Taylor's meditation. I am so excited for that.
Yeah, this was probably the best idea we've had for the podcast.
It really was. Yeah.
I'm so proud of this idea.
Yep.
And so all of our guests that are teachers and that offer meditations or guided practices, we are giving them the opportunity to record something and share it with all of you here on the podcast. So if perhaps you've tried our episodes where we offer a meditation, a journal practice, that additional yoga off the mat, and you've enjoyed it, now you're getting more teachers. If you've tried it and thought, I hate me and Adrienne's voice, now you get Taylor's and you don't have to worry about our stupid voices anymore. But no, I mean, all jokes aside, just another opportunity for y'all to practice yoga with more teachers. We're super excited to be able to bring that to you and to bolster them as teachers and let them teach to a huge platform of people.
Yeah, a different platform of people.
Mm-hmm.
You can follow them and then you can download some of their content on their sites. It's just a good way of sharing different perspectives. So I'm excited. I also want to put out there, I want to manifest this, okay? I would like to see us. So we're both really big Housewife fans, right? We're both big Bravo fans.
Facts, receipts, screenshots. We know who you really are.
Exactly. The rumors. We love watching the Housewives. And I know that there's housewives out there that listen to podcasts. And I know there's housewives out there that practice yoga. So I want to get them on the podcast. Wouldn't that be fucking cool?
That'd be insane.
I know. I want to hear all the different stories. We hear all different origin stories on this podcast. And, we're just big fans of the ladies of Bravo and the men of Bravo. So bring it. I want to see it. I watched Watch What Happens Live the other night and watching
with Kevin.
Oh my God. So it was like 2 of my favorite worlds colliding at once. I'm obsessed with Kevin Hart. I love everything about him. I love Andy Cohen. I love Watch What Happened Live. Love Bravo. And to see Kevin Hart do the little
Heather monologue.
Oh, dying. What the fuck is my dog doing? Do you hear him?
Yeah, but pause. I don't think it's picking up. Look, hold on. Let him do it again.
He's a fucking asshole. He always does that. It's like this annoying, just like one chirpy bark.
I don't think it picked up.
Okay, that's fine. I'm leaving this in anyway.
Well, with that, let's get into the episode.
All right. We'll catch you on the flip side.
Hey, yogis. Welcome back to the How Yoga Changed My Life podcast. This is Mia.
And Adrienne.
And today we have guest
Taylor
with us. So we are going to interview Taylor. We're super excited for you all to meet her. This is our first time meeting Taylor. She is a friend of the pod. And so we found her through another guest, which is, we just love how these things happen.
Exactly.
It's exciting.
It is. It's really cool. So today we are actually on a road trip. We're in Houston and we're staying at the Cambria Hotel. I'll give you a shout out because the service is fantastic. It's a beautiful hotel. We are set up in their lobby. So you may hear some clanging dishes, maybe some music behind us.
Coffee shop vibes.
Coffee shop vibes. Yeah. Hotel lobby vibes. So, well, let's get started. Taylor, introduce yourself.
Hello. I am Taylor. I am a Houston native, although I did live in San Antonio, actually. So I was excited to share that with you
No
guys
way.
because my yoga journey started in San Antonio. I went to UTSA.
Nice.
But yes, I'm a Houston native. I am a teacher of all ages. So I work with children, particularly children with neurological differences, but also a yoga instructor. These last few years, I've also been a health and life coach.
Oh, nice.
And yeah.
Very cool.
So you went to UTSA.
Yes.
And what kind of, do you have a full-time job besides it being a yoga teacher? Or is that your full-time job?
I don't currently, actually. I do run a business. It's with youth, kids with neurological differences. It's an outdoor education program that's STEM focused.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so I've been doing that since COVID. I started that, and then
What's it called? You can give your
Back with Nature.
Back with Nature.
Yeah, so I still do a little bit with that. I'm not full time with it currently because I recently found out that I'm expecting. So I'm a mom to be. So that's another role besides teacher, soon mom to be. So I just took a little break, kind of step back from it a little bit because I'll have a little one full time.
Mm-hmm.
So
when are you due?
In the middle of February.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so coming up kind of soon.
You don't look pregnant at all. It's your first one though.
Yes.
So sometimes it takes a little bit to show, but you look amazing.
So I'm coming up on 6 months and yeah. So
do you know what you're having?
A boy. Yeah, having a little boy. It's cool. The first time I felt him move, I was actually doing yoga. So that was really neat. I was in the middle of a yoga class. Felt his little kick. But yeah, so that's what I do aside from being a yoga and a meditation instructor.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So basically you're a full-time yogi right now.
Yes.
I love it.
And you said your yoga journey started in San Antonio. Did you find yoga in San Antonio?
Yes. So I don't know if you want me to just like kind of get into it.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
cool. I was kind of, as a child, I had some underlying like mental health issues that just weren't really addressed. It wasn't a thing that was talked about, so it wasn't really something that could be addressed or know how to address. I didn't know how to advocate for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then in high school, those 4 years of high school, actually, I joined a competitive like club softball team.
Oh, nice.
And so that was year round, and that I didn't realize until, now looking back, it provided me a lot of discipline and structure that I needed at that time in my life. And so it was also giving me a purpose. Like, yes, it was softball, but it was giving me a purpose at that time. And then when I was 17, I graduated, and the intention was to walk on at UTSA, the softball team there. And then there were just some things that happened, some miscommunication, and ended up not making the team. So I was more devastated than I think I even realized I was. And because of these underlying mental health issues that I was experiencing, all of that kind of came back up to the surface because there wasn't something there to kind of ground me in. So I just was filling a void with unhealthy lifestyle patterns, as you can kind of let your mind wonder where.
Can you? You're not specifying your mental health issues. Do you want to, or do you not want to?
I think there was just some experiences, some kind of traumatic experiences that had happened early on that just didn't get addressed. I didn't get the help that I needed. And it's also, there's some mental health stuff that's been in my family that was also, it was just never discussed.
That's what I was going to say. Like, I wanted you to kind of elaborate a little bit on the actual symptoms or the feelings that you were having, because I think for parents out there that aren't talking about mental health issues, what are some of the things that you were attributing or coming out with? Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, I think a lot of it started when I started puberty, because your body is just rushed with all these hormones and changes. And there was a lot of like self-esteem issues that I struggled with. And yeah, I think I just didn't get the emotional nurturing that I needed as a child. And again, it was just kind of from a lack of knowing, not so much a like not caring or neglect kind of thing. And so there was some depression. I was, experiencing depression and just kind of a disassociated sense of self, just feeling very disconnected from my body, the outside world, and then not understanding what was going on. So just thinking like, what the hell is wrong with me? And then, internalizing all of that and then participating in certain unhealthy behaviors that were kind of filling this void that I didn't understand why it was there. And then as I, going to college, you have a little bit more freedom. You're not checking in with somebody every evening. And I kind of just ran wild with it. It was just hanging out with the wrong crowds, engaging in very risky behaviors. And it was just kind of this really quickly, which I'm grateful for now looking back, this kind of quickly downward spiral that got myself to a point where I actually became physically sick. So, from example, lack of sleep, I was underage drinking, I was mixing pills with alcohol, and then not sleeping, not eating. So it took a toll on me pretty quickly and actually started to develop chest pain and heart problems. And it got to the point where I couldn't exercise anymore. Like anything that elevated my heart rate, I would get really nauseous. And sometimes I would throw up. I would get, when you stand up too fast and you get that fuzzy gray. I don't know if that's ever happened to you.
Like a low blood pressure kind of thing.
Yes,
yeah,
that was happening to me all the time. So I had to learn to stand up slowly. And at the time I'm 19 years old. And I'm like, okay, it was kind of this reality check of if I continue down this path, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it to 40, maybe not make it to 30. And also I think one of the things that I talk about sometimes, even with my clients, is sometimes it takes us getting to a point of we have to be sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's kind of where I was at, where I was miserable physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually as well. So I was like, okay, I've got to do something. And so I kind of I took this turn in my life where I started eating healthier because I was like, if I can't run and exercise to stay in shape, and I was noticing physical changes as well in my body, I'm going to have to start eating healthier. And then I'm like, okay, what can I do to stay active that's not going to make me sick? And that is actually where I found yoga. So at the rec center at most universities, they have group classes. So I had access to all these different exercise classes, and yoga was one of the options. So I'm like, what? I'm just going to try it. I've heard about yoga. Let me just see. And I made it through the whole class, and I didn't feel sick afterwards. I felt really good, obviously, because I had just done a whole hour of yoga. But I could get through it without feeling any negative side effects from what was going on with me physically. So, of course, I was hooked.
Yeah.
And I just because you have access to these classes several times a week, I was going to yoga regularly. And then simultaneously, because of the lifestyle choices that I was making, I wasn't going to classes. And so I ended up getting put on academic probation, which was really a blessing in disguise. It's just really beautiful how everything kind of played out in the end. But I got put on academic probation. They removed me from the College of Business, which I didn't even want to be there. I think I was listening to what other people were telling me I should do, what I should major in and stuff like that. And so I got kicked out or put on probation. So I had to do, I think, a semester or 2 semesters to get my GPA up before I could get into a different try to get back in the College of Business or go into some other degree path. And so I basically had to take a lot of filler classes in the meantime. And so that is where I took a intro to psychology and an intro to sociology class. And it was really, at the time, I was like, I can take these to get my GPA up. So I took them. I fell absolutely in love with it. So I ended up getting my degree in psychology. Nice. And it just gave me a lot of insight to what I went through and I experienced as a child. And it kind of helped me put a lot of the pieces together. And then at that same time, I also began to explore my spirituality. So I kind of dabbled in Kabbalism a little bit. And then from there, I was introduced to Buddhism. And I got really, really deep into the Buddhism practice. I started attending regularly a Buddhist center. It's over off of, I believe, Blaylock. So not far from that big HEB off 1604. And I'm trying to remember the name of it. But
oh, nice.
So it's pretty close to the university. And I actually was passing by it several times. And I just felt this call to go in and went in. And I had kind of done my own personal research on Buddhism and meditation. And it was really nice to get involved with a community because I had felt very, very alone up until that point. And so to meet with other people who had similar experiences, thoughts, feelings, had gone through the same thing, it was really nice. And it made me feel a bit more, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, like more connected. Mm-hmm. So I don't know anything about a Buddhist center. So tell me, like, is it like church, worship sessions, or is it like you go in and there's somebody there that can help you? Like, how does that work?
Mm-hmm. So it's very similar. I actually grew up in a church, so it was similar in a lot of ways in that there was a Sunday service. There's just obviously different traditions and routines that we would go through. And then there would also be kind of like what would be similar to like a Bible study, but using, Buddhist texts and things like that. So we would meet different days of the week for that. So I was there, I think Monday, Wednesdays, and Sundays. I was just like, it was like medication, like, and that's how I say about meditation as well. It was like taking a medication that was helping me heal and helping me feel more whole. And so all of that was kind of happening simultaneously. I found yoga, and obviously there is yoga within Buddhism as well. So there were a lot of parallels. I found out that there's a lot of parallels between psychology and Buddhism too. So it was just I just kind of dove deep into it, and I got really into nutrition. So that's where kind of my inspiration for being a health coach came from. And I knew from the beginning I wanted to be a yoga teacher. Like I always knew. And again, one of those, like, it was just meant to be that for as long as, and this was maybe 2013, 2014, that I'm like, I want to be a teacher. And I just didn't have the resources for it at the time. Right. So it was just kind of this pipe dream type of thing, and life carried on. And then it just really all worked out because me ended up getting, I don't know if Alexandra had shared this, but I got certified at Soul Tribes.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I've known Alexandra for a while, and I knew about her wanting to start the studio. And so I was super excited to find out that she was going to be doing a yoga and meditation teacher training. So I got certified in 2020. So it was many years later, but I'm grateful because it was exactly what was needed. So yeah, I started. Oh, another thing I wanted to mention too, this was not even planned or anything. So I'm doing yoga, and I think about 5 or 6 months in. Prior to that, I had actually been experiencing chronic back pain from the age of 12 years old. And I mean, it was every single day, sometimes more mild than others, but it was every day I had low back pain. And as a kid, it's confusing when you're going to these doctors and they can't tell you what's wrong or what's going on, and they're just prescribing something to help with the inflammation and the pain, and not offering solutions. And so, or
exercises to do, right? Yeah. It's like if your low back hurts, 90% of the time it's your core or it's your glutes,
Yeah. So I gotten to the point where I was like, okay, this is just what I'm just going to live this way. Like, this is just life for me. Now I'm a really big believer in the mind-body connection and how our mental and emotional health can affect our physical health. And I know there was a lot of a connection there for me at that time. But I'm doing yoga about 5 to 6 months in, and I wake up one day and I'm like, holy shit, my back pain is gone. Like, it was gone. I was like sold after that. Yeah. Like, I was like, okay. And then I was like I could have been yoga's like biggest promoter at that time, because I was just like, yoga for everybody. Like, this is amazing. And so I share that story often with people who are new to yoga and come in and they're experiencing, especially when it comes to back pain. I think, unfortunately, back pain is a common symptom for people. And so, we don't think like, oh, it could be, like you said, glutes or hamstrings,
or core, or the pelvic floor, right? All those things are all connected. And that's one thing that bothers the crap out of me is like when you go to a doctor nowadays and it's a general practitioner, they generally look at you. They don't give you the specifics, right? So it's like, my low back hurts. Okay, what exercises are you doing? That should be the first thing that you ask. Like, what does your daily routine look like? Are you sitting a lot? Are you slumped over? Like, why? I get really bothered by the fact that, and then doctors will say, oh, your low back hurts, then you should go do yoga. But yet, are they doing yoga? I would love to know that. If we have a doctor out there who prescribes yoga and does yoga, let us know.
Reach out. We want to have you on the pod.
Exactly. Yeah, and like not knowing the connection of your mind and your body. Like if you learned that as you were growing up in a classroom situation, right? Instead of trying to fit into this mold of, PE sit and reach or, flexed arm hangs or whatever to get to these goals put together. It's like, no, how about I learn that my hamstrings are attached here and that this is how they work, right? And then this is how they attach to everything else so that you can understand the body from the inside out is what we should be studying.
Yeah. I think that's part of what inspired me to become a teacher and to work with kids, because there were a lot of moments where I was like this, I wish this would have been taught to me as a child, or I wish this was taught to children, because it should be just information and knowledge that should be accessible to them, especially even just the basics of how our mind works, and then again, how our mind is connected to our body. Practicing yoga and then having the meditation practice that came in with it, and then just it was a whole 180 lifestyle change that I had gone through. And again, I was kind of at this point of desperation. And so that's why I also have a lot of empathy for people, because it took me being like really sick to actually, because it was like I knew like, okay, something's not right, like I should change. But it just took me getting to my rock bottom, my version of rock bottom, to like, okay, I got to do something. But then I was kind of all in about it and changing every aspect of my life. And it was, obviously not only improving my flexibility, but also, again, kind of back to that mind-body connection. It was improving my mental flexibility. I felt more calm. I felt more present. And that's a really, really big thing. And kind of going back to like working with kids, like I feel like that should be invited more into the classroom, is
Absolutely.
being more present. And what was really cool to see or to experience was, as I was kind of taking these actions and changing certain behaviors, and I was changing internally, I kind of went through my own version of like a awakening. And I became present enough where I just kind of naturally felt less kind of pulled or called to participate in certain activities,
Right.
or even go into certain places that I used to go, and then engaging in this risky behavior. It was just kind of all like, it was like a conscience in me. And now looking back, for me personally, I know that was God, that was a power greater than me, that was really supporting me in that. And it was like, okay, you chose life, Taylor, so I'm going to help you with that. And what was really cool is later on, I was making all these changes, and actually realized I'd never joined a 12-step program, but I'd actually kind of taken myself through a lot of the 12 steps on my own. And then when I learned about the 12 steps, I was like, whoa, that's kind of what I went through in terms of, turning my life over to a power greater than me, and even making amends. That was a big thing. I was just becoming more present, and I was just being filled with more love. And so there was people that I wanted to talk to that it was like, that wasn't me. Yeah, there was, and I remember feeling like that too when I started to really like wake up and be more present. There was this feeling of like, wow, I was like a zombie in a way, where I was just in a fog. And so it was just kind of a quick evolution. And then of course my path hasn't been, a straight beeline from there to here, it's kind of wavered, and I think that's normal, and that's part of life, and we, ebb and flow in life. And right now, yoga and meditation are such a big part of my life, whether it's practicing personally or it is such a joy to like share that. And the fact that I get to share that regularly every week with people, and hear the feedback from them of like what it's doing for them. Because sometimes I try to remind myself that, especially when we have really busy lives and you don't know what somebody's got going on. And when they come to their yoga practice, that could be their one moment of peace throughout their whole day or throughout their whole week. And so I really try to cultivate being present in the room with them to invite that as well, to carry that feeling with them throughout the rest of the day, throughout the rest of their week. So yeah, I love what I do, and feel very grateful for Alexandra and allowing me to teach at Soul Tribes and be a part of what she has created and is creating. And again, it was kind of really a blessing in disguise that it wasn't until many, many years later that I got certified teaching, because it was very nice having a personal relationship with her and getting trained through her versus going somewhere just to get a certification.
Yeah.
It was really personal, and I like that.
Yeah. You know, you said a lot of really interesting things just now, and I loved how you said, you know, when you started your yoga and meditation practice, that the things kind of fell out that you didn't want to do anymore. And I noticed the same kind of thing with me. Like when I would leave yoga, it's like I'm not going to eat like a huge, dinner, right? I might eat something a little bit lighter, or, I may get up a little bit earlier because there's a class I want to go to, or, these little tiny bits that start to kind of replace the behaviors that you don't need to hold on to, right? And the fact that you're taking this as, it's a service role. Like we serve other people when we're teaching yoga classes. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of determination and dedication to the field, right? Like you studied 200 hours and you're probably still studying, right? Learning as you go. So when I'm really interested in Buddhism as well. So tell me, like, are you still practicing Buddhist?
I do. So one of the things that I learned is that I think there's a misconception that Buddhism is a religion, and it's not. It's a practice. And, they would even say, like the reverend at the center I was going to, he said Jesus was Buddhist. Because it's a practice. It's a way you live your life. And I'm not currently involved with any groups or spiritual organizations here in Houston at the moment, but I do practice it. I still have all my textbooks and paperwork. And I got trained as a youth leader at that center.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was very involved with the group. We flew to California to their headquarters to do like a training and stuff like that. So yeah, I still practice it in my daily living. And
which teachings were they following?
Risho Kosekai, a Japanese sect of Buddhism. So yes.
See, I think that's really cool. I'm glad that you said that Buddhism is not a religion. It's the same thing like yoga is not a religion, right? Yoga is more like the big why of how to not be an asshole in life. That's what I always tell people,
I'd say the big difference is, though, I do think people often think Buddhism is a religion. Like
100%.
A few people have that misconception about yoga, but I'd say almost
everyone
other than Buddhists have that misconception about Buddhism.
Totally. That's 100%. I've always thought of it because when they talk about religion, they say, Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, Buddhism.
I was going to say, it's funny, I also studied sociology in school, or found sociology, had been in business, found sociology, switched to sociology very quickly. And I took a sociology of religion course. And it was funny, I was actually thinking about this last night as we were falling asleep. And Adrienne and I were at a hotel together. And I failed a paper that I wrote for my sociology of religion class because I lied and said that I went to a Buddhist temple. Like I made up a paper.
Oh my God.
And I was like, man, he must have figured it out, which is so funny. I was like, man, I guess he just knew. And also I'm a teacher now. I teach middle school. I'm like, it's so easy when kids are lying. I'm like, and so anyways, all that to say, then years later, my dad found a Buddhist temple that he started going to, and I started going. I went on that retreat with my dad, and I learned also there that Buddhism is not a religion. I was like, so that's how he really knew I didn't write the paper.
Exactly. It's not even a religion. Wait, so I do want you to mention that because this is actually kind of cool. It's in Mississippi, right?
Following the teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh. Okay. And so it's Mongolia Grove. And it was an amazing weekend. My dad lives in Mississippi, and so he's done a few different retreats there as well. And then I went with him one, I think Thanksgiving break. We went together.
Have you ever been on a retreat like that?
Oh yeah. Yes, I was. Yeah, all the retreats. I love the retreats. I followed the teachings of Osho for a little while. I had a really good friend in college whose parents were involved.
Did you watch?
So I got to go on.
Did you watch the documentary about
I did not.
the
No, I
wild?
didn't.
What is it called? Wild West Country or something like that.
Okay, I think I
Wild
might
Wild
have heard of
Country.
it.
Wild Country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got to go to several. It was more meditation, but there was some yoga intertwined with it. But it was meditation retreats, and then I've also been really involved in something called other retreats, or more like spiritual. A friend of mine, she started this kind of community of people, and there's a lot of yoga and meditation involved in that, and just alternative forms of healing and things like that.
Nice.
So yeah, I love the retreats.
Well, I think it's really cool that you have kind of the background and the learnings and the teachings from Buddhism, right? And then having the yogic background, having the psychology background too, and being able to kind of understand. One of the things that I think is so beautiful about what your story has showed me so far is that you don't see any of the things in your past as being horrific and negative. You appreciate the lows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say it took me a while to get there. I think at first, and I don't know, maybe people do and I don't hear it enough. I think it's getting talked about more, but you hear about like spiritual bypassing.
Oh, tell me about that.
So it was in the beginning, I think that it was good for me, but it was like I switched out one addiction with another. And even though it was a healthy addiction in a way, you know, I'm practicing yoga, I'm practicing meditation, I'm involved with Buddhism, I'm really into nutrition. And I think it kind of helped me escape from a lot of my past choices that I made that I was carrying a lot of shame about. The people that I'd hurt, and I was carrying shame and guilt about that. And then even just experiences that I had that I was, again, felt shame about. So it was kind of a way to like, I could just not think about it. And then over time, I think I think that's normal.
Yeah.
I think sometimes at first we kind of need that clean, like just escape from it for a little bit, out of sight, out of mind. And then as we're ready to come back and visit those things and work through them, and that's another thing that I think my yoga practice, not just the asana practice, right, but just yoga and Buddhism in general has helped me work through, is coming back to kind of working through those things. And then again, seeing, you know, now I'm saying blessing in disguise, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm seeing in retrospect how all of the pieces fit together and how I went in a certain direction of my life for a reason, because I wouldn't be where I am right now, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, if I hadn't gone through that tough time. So yeah, it's took a little bit of time to get there, and a lot of support, and you know, my own personal getting coaching and counseling and mentoring, and having some really wonderful people in my life to help me see that I'm wonderful too.
Right.
You know?
It takes a village. It takes a village. So you kind of answered the question of like what brought you back, right? Because it was like the low back pain, the heart issues that you were having, kind of just the lifestyle choices you were making, and those subtle differences that you were noticing that brought you back. But did anyone else notice a change in you?
You mean like initially?
Yeah, like when you started practicing yoga more regularly and really getting into it, did other people kind of notice any changes from it?
I think so. I think I have 2 college roommates who are now my absolute best friends. Like I'm going to be sharing this podcast with them when it comes out. And they were kind of there through the whole thing. And even though they didn't know the entirety of what all was going on during that time, I know that there was concern about me, and they obviously really cared about me. And I think they were definitely, because I was living with them, right? Yeah. So they were definitely ones to notice.
They're like, dude, why are you coming in at 6 a.m. or something, right? Like, I need my sleep too.
Yeah. Exactly.
Sorry.
So yeah, it was, they definitely noticed. And then Yeah, I think that was kind of the big thing. They were the closest to me. And then slowly over time, I think my parents started to notice too, because my relationship got better with them. And so we were just communicating more, and it was just, I was happier, which of course, if you're happier, like it's going to affect how you treat other people too. So, but yeah, I'd say yeah, them.
I think it's interesting too, like I've noticed over my journey that when you vibrate higher, when you're working on yourself, you can help raise other vibrations, right? But there are some people that will be in your life that don't like the fact that you're vibrating higher. And those people will try to pull you down. And that's a lot of times where you have to kind of shift and reconnoiter where you're going in life, right? I wanted to ask you, because of the fact that you were hanging with, like you said, like kind of like the wrong crowd for a while and started yoga, did any of your friends or family begin practicing yoga or Buddhism even when you started doing it? Did anybody get interested? Because you know how you said, like, I loved it. I wanted everyone to do it, right? It's like that. Have you tried yoga?
No, I think at first it was like, you're weird, because it was such a big change. So it was like, you're being weird, Taylor.
Yeah.
Like, you seem happier, you're doing better, and like you can keep that over there and I'll be over here. So not so much really. I will say my partner Austin and I, we've been together for nearly 8 years, and he'd had kind of a similar path leading up to right before we started dating. So just very similar in terms of coming to Buddhism, yoga, and meditation through a dark time, and someone introducing him to that. And then when we got together, it helped kind of blossom both of us to cultivate a deeper practice. He got certified in yoga in 2013 in like a hatha / like Ayurvedic training. So we were practicing pretty regularly together. So it's kind of just been like a part of the foundation of our relationship.
How cool is that?
Yeah, very.
We both, like my husband is not a yoga practitioner yet. I'm going to keep saying.
loves yoga.
Yeah, Jair will come to class and
Constantly.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like I love that.
That's my partner.
I think it's important that you have that support system too, you know, especially when you both are young, you're both going through something. It's really magical that you found each other.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So does he teach?
No, not currently.
No. Okay. That's cool. Does he come to your classes?
Yes.
I love it. All right. So when you started to practice more, like, can you give me an example of like an aha moment, right? Like that moment in class, whether you're teaching or whether you're a student, where you had that moment of like, everything is bliss right now. Like I always use the example of, you know, hitting a home run. It's like everything kind of comes together in one swing, right? Did you ever have a moment like that?
The first thing that popped into my head, I'm not exactly sure why, it was pigeon pose. Something about pigeon pose just did it to me.
Pigeon pose sometimes, man. Fuck it.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I think that's kind of where I was in my practice. It was like, fuck pigeon pose.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
also, I need to be here right now. I need to feel this. So that was kind of initially the first thing that happened. And then I think sometimes, I can't think of a particular moment, but I know sometimes I would kind of experience like this emotional release from practicing. So getting back to that mind-body connection, and it was very subconscious, right? Like I don't know why I'm crying, but it's happening right now. Whether that's in Shavasana or in certain poses towards the end of class or something, you just feel this kind of release of like, oh, that was in there and now it gets to kind of move out of me.
Those are beautiful moments. What about teaching? So what's kind of some of the things that you love about being a yoga teacher? If you had any of your students have aha moments in your class?
I think so. Yeah. And it's neat when people come up to me, afterwards and like tell me, because I wouldn't know in the moment watching them, especially like, sometimes students concentrated faces and I'm like, are you enjoying this?
I know,
right
do you
now?
hate me right now?
But then they come up to me after and they're like extremely grateful, because I always invite a lot of presence into a practice, because I do believe that is one of the main goals of yoga, is to become more present in your body. And so I think when people get that, they've come up to me afterwards. And I would say right now for me, teaching is where I feel the most in flow. I'm just like, feel me, like I'm there. I'm it's just coming through me. I'm flowing in my words and my cues. And I really enjoy that about teaching.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there is that kind of that rhythm and flow when you really get into it and you're present, right? One of the pieces of your story, like I said before, is the fact that like I don't feel that negativity about your past. I feel that, and I just got full body chills.
Yeah.
I don't, and I have a hard time with that sometimes. There's pieces and parts of my life where I'm like, fuck, I was a real asshole at this point. Like, how do I make amends, you know, energetically now? Because I don't want to hold on to those feelings, you know?
And also to oneself, right? Like, I think that's the biggest one is like just also making amends towards ourselves and reigniting a relationship that's, you know, to ourselves, that's of love and care and compassion, taking all those Buddhist traits and then turning them inward, right?
Yes.
I think that was the thing for me. It was easier for me to go and practice Buddhism towards others and be selfless towards others. And then it was like, oh, I got to do that. Like, it's really about doing that to me.
That's true. That's so true, though. Yeah. Because it is that point of like, as a teacher, too, you have a specific energy, that space that you hold for people. And it can be emotionally exhausting, right? If you're not taking care of yourself and if you're giving, then you're just draining your own battery. What can others learn from your story?
I think the biggest thing maybe to take away from this, or how others maybe could like relate to this story, is I think trusting that, as cliche as it sounds, like everything does happen for a reason. And I say that, and like there's some things that we may never find out why in this lifetime. It's not about like getting the answers to why it happens. I think it's just that trust of like, okay, I've been led in this direction, or this thing did or did not happen for me because a reason it happened. That's how it played out. So there's some kind of cause and reason for it. And I think a big thing too is like loving yourself is a verb, right? It's through action. It's not like we're necessarily a feeling, because I can honestly say like I don't feel that all the time, but it's how I choose to live my life, right? What I'm choosing to put in my body, how I'm choosing to move my body. It can be done through our behaviors and actions. And so I think a good question I used to ask myself, okay, what would somebody that loves themselves do right now? And then going from there. But yeah, I think just keep going. That's another thing too. Keep going. Like I said, this has been a 10-year journey. Yeah. Right. So to get to where I am, so it wasn't overnight, and there was a lot of bumps along the way. And like I said, it wasn't even a clear path these past 10 years. It was kind of veering off and jumping back on, and, you know, getting things in small doses, getting things in bigger doses, to lead me to where I am.
It's amazing. All right. So where can people follow you, find you, meet up with you, take class with you?
Yeah. So if you're in Houston, you can come see me at Soul Tribe's Yoga and Meditation Studio. We're in the Spring Branch area. But one of the lovely things that we offer too is virtual classes. So you can join me from anywhere. That's with awesome. Zoom. Yeah, and then you can find me on Instagram too. It's the Taylor Wilson. I love sharing all things health and movement, somatics, the mind-body connection. So you can get lots of really great stuff on there. And
very cool, very cool. I did want to ask you a question about we don't have to keep this in here or anything, but with Buddhism and the practice of Buddhism, were there certain tools that you connected with that you used regularly?
Yes. That's a great question. And I think I'd have to think for a second what it is. But I think that the Eightfold Path is similar to like what we see in the 8 limbs of yoga. And there's a lot of, interconnectedness, right? So like also connecting to what are others thinking, feeling, doing, how are they I think I learned a lot of patience through Buddhism in terms of like understanding that you're not to judge other people's behavior based on that one moment in time. And I think especially it's another thing that my story taught me is like, we don't know what people have been through, are going through, the kind of support they have or have not had. So, I think there's a cause for every behavior that people have, and I think not so much as an excuse, but more like a peaceful understanding. Like, okay, they're at where they're at right now because of maybe certain personal experiences that they've had.
I think that's beautiful because, you think first impressions, right? First impression about a person, and then you get stuck on that opinion or that belief. And it's the same thing with kids. Like when my daughters are talking about meeting people at school, they're like, oh, well, she's a bitch. I'm like, well, how do you know she's a bitch? She could have just been a bitch that day. But that non-judgmental kind of open awareness of others, I think is critical. And that's something that in society we judge. We judge a TikTok, we like a photo, an Instagram story, whatever. It's like we're getting bits and pieces and we're making judgments where we should be more open and non-judgmental. I think that's so critical. So critical.
Yeah. So I think that was really the big one, is that non-judgmental attitude or mindset towards others. And again, funny how I found it in the beginning much easier to turn that mindset towards others. And then it was like, oh, but then I have to be non-judgmental towards myself. That one took a little bit more work.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it still does. So
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
This was lovely. We're back.
We're here again.
So let's get into this. Taylor's episode. I love Taylor. I love her energy. I love her vibe. I love everything she taught me. Kind of the different perspective of yoga than just the asana, right? Some people that we've talked to are like asana, like physical practice, right? That's what brought me in. Or my body was sore. That's what brought me in. And now we're getting more kind of deeper into, health and wellness and your mental health, and learning about how you can use meditation and breath work along with a movement practice to alleviate your suffering.
As I was re-listening to the episode, I realized Taylor is going to be due in about a month when this episode releases.
No way.
Yeah. So congrats, Taylor. I hope you're taking it easy and that the pregnancy has been smooth. And so super excited for you.
Yeah, that's right. I totally forgot about that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And, getting into the nitty gritty of her episode, I really resonated with the yoga philosophy and the history of yoga with the Koshas and Taylor's episode.
Tell us more about the Koshas.
Okay. So Koshas, right? Kosha is a sheath. It's a layer. And in the Upanishads is when that's like an ancient yogic text for those that you don't know. That's where the Koshas are kind of introduced. Yeah, derived, right? And for me, the Koshas are a really cool way of looking at your physical body, your energetic body, all of the pieces and parts of you in these different layers, and working through and in all these different layers to alleviate your own suffering. There are 5 different areas of the Koshas. The Koshas are the physical, the energy, the mental, wisdom, and finally, bliss. There's more to it. There are some people that have self and one as well. I'm going to go with those 5 layers, knowing that bliss is kind of that inside, right? So with your kosha system, it helps you to kind of navigate states of consciousness.
And if this is kind of sounding nebular and it's hard to kind of grasp, something that it reminded me of personally is of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, just in terms of you almost have to follow this progression to work inward, similar to the Maslow hierarchy of needs. You have to follow this progression to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So we can't experience well, and then there's also a flipped Maslow hierarchy of needs, but this idea that you have to address the physical, and similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you have to address your safety and food concerns
survival.
survival before you can keep moving to connection and friendships, and before you can find,
Right.
Fulfillment. And so similar.
When you learn how to navigate through the layers and you learn, okay, what am I feeling right now? What is the truth? Right? We tell ourselves so many different stories. So let's get into the 5 layers. The first layer is your Anamaya Kosha, and that is your physical body. That's the sheath that composes the outer layer, right? That is where some people call it the food sheath, right? That is your body, the way that you physically feel in your body. That's that outer layer. And I call that like the gross, right? And that's part of, out of the 5 of them, the 3 are kind of considered physical, and other 2 are considered more of like the internal world of your body. So then the next kosha is the energy. So that's the pranamaya kosha. Prana is life force energy. So we already know that we need to have energy to move throughout our systems. Breath work is where we can have that support, that external world support. This is where, when you're aware of this kosha, you're able to move stagnant energy, right? You're able to kind of get through the day and connect with your energy level. Like, how am I feeling? Where do I need to go? What do I need to release and not hold on to? It's very subtle though, right?
And I think right there within those 2 layers, or those 2 sheaths, is where we kind of started to see Taylor's story. So when we think about when she turned to yoga, it was after she had been very, very dedicated to the softball team, and it fell through, right? She was not able to continue to pursue this extremely physical practice that was giving her fulfillment. And when that fell away, she was left with a lot of emotions, right? And it immediately did not happen, right? She started to still struggle in that physical body, dealing with partying, dealing with mixing alcohol and pills, and dealing with, she never used this term, but hitting her rock bottom in some sort, right?
Yeah.
Hitting this point where she had to then move inward and address what was emotionally concerning her.
Yeah. And she even said, like, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And the physical pain. So when you talk about the kosha levels, like, she's feeling that on the external body. The 3rd layer of the koshas is your mental. That is the manomaya kosha. That's the mind side of things. Okay. Now, mind is representative. The sheath is representative of emotions, the inner world. It's also the layer that is filled with illusions and doubts. It's the mental makeup of what we tell ourselves, the stories that we tell ourselves, the limiting beliefs that we put out there for ourselves. I find it really interesting. I was going back through and doing some research for the commentary, and I pulled out my 500-hour journal from 2015, 2016. And in here, I wrote out a lot of information about the koshas, but it's different states of consciousness. It's this idea that when you're in your kind of mental state and the wisdom state, like between those 2 sheaths, the next layer is the wisdom body. You have the idea of frequencies of emotions, fear and excitement run on the same frequency, the same like level. And then so does joy and depression, focus, anger, flow, anxiety. These are just opposites, right? Bliss, frustration, transformation, and confusion. So a lot of times in the mental body, you will find that you are filling yourselves with doubt and illusions and limited beliefs. To work further inward, you get into the wisdom body. And this is the layer that's kind of separate from the actual physical body. And this is the Vijnanamaya Kosha. This is the seat of your intuition. This is the place where true wisdom lies within. That idea of whole truth, right? It's not about the limits that you put on yourself. It's not about the expectations that others have for you. It's not about what you think you're good at or you're not good at. It's the truth within. It's that feeling of I am connected to my greater good. And it's definitely more subtle. Everything that we get through from a physical standpoint for all of us, it's going to be more subtle. It's going to be more energetic. It's going to be taking time to be still and quiet and be able to listen inward. The last kosha, or the most center one, is the bliss body. That's the Anandamaya kosha. That's the place where, you know, so much of us want to try to get to. It's deepest. It's the subtlest layer. It means a lot to people. It's hard to even describe it. But developing this kosha requires you to really have discipline to complete inner work and spiritual practices over a longer period of time. So that means doing your meditation on a daily basis for an extended period of time. And this idea of this universal consciousness, right? This bliss body. And some of you may have even experienced it in a yoga practice in Shavasana, you know, where you feel like you're just blissed out and nothing else matters in life. So I just think it's really neat to be able to explain some of the philosophy and history behind yoga and the koshas. And I loved how you said it earlier too, is it is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It is chakra system. It's all intertwined together, because not only do you have these kind of sheath layers, but if you start to really feel your whole world this way, you can give yourself a lot more space and grace, realizing, hey, physically I may not feel good, but pain moves and comes and goes. You know, mentally, I may not be, you know, thinking the most positive thoughts. I may be filling myself with doubts and illusions, you know, but I have my breath, I have my energy, and I have my ability to turn inward.
Well, and I also think it's interesting that she was dealing with chronic pain until yoga, and not necessarily... And the physical component could have been a part of it, but I do think that emotions and trauma and mental health has a physical impact.
Absolutely.
On you. And so considering the fact that she had been dealing with that threat of mental health since childhood and had been experiencing that pain since childhood with no understanding of why, and then through a practice and through meditation and through addressing her emotional state, it was, I don't know, there's a correlation there.
Totally. Even just listening to friends and family when they're going through shit at work and they're feeling terrible and their job sucks, what happens? They get sick. You know, they get depressed, they get anxious. All of our feelings can manifest in physical ways in our body. And if we don't learn how to release or undo the patterns of doubt and limiting beliefs and illusions, we're always going to be in the same fucking spiraling toilet drain, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that fear and excitement, these opposites can live together, and you as a human being can learn how to control how you react and respond. Just get on your mat, practice. I'm excited to share with you guys next week a meditation based around the idea of releasing limiting beliefs and really kind of getting into your bliss state of being. Yeah. That's all I got.
Sweet. Thank you all so much for listening. If you have not already, please subscribe to us wherever you're listening to this podcast. You can follow us at Instagram at Yoga Change. You can send us a message. You can email us, yogachange@gmail.com, if you're interested in being on the podcast or sharing your story. Or if you just have some feedback and thoughts on the podcast, we'd love to hear them. We love hearing from listeners. It's super special and super exciting. And if you're in San Antonio and you are a yoga teacher, come to Adrienne, Nicole, and Jenny's open house at Blue Heart Studio 44. You can find information in our link tree, which is in our bio on Instagram. We'll make sure to link it in this episode as well. The open house is going to be a really fun gathering of yoga teachers and community. And you can learn more about the 300-hour training.
Absolutely.
I know that those are kind of hard to come by, especially in this area. I've been looking for one for a long time. I think there was one available to me and that one didn't work out. And so if you're in a similar boat, come check it out. See if this is one for you.
Yeah. And just share this episode with someone you think will really enjoy Taylor's story that you connected with or someone else can connect with. You know, this is our job. We're not here to make millions of dollars. We're here to share our love of yoga with you and make you guys happy. So thanks, listeners. We really appreciate all your support, and we will see you next week.
Bye, yogis.
Bye.